For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, The Lost Chapter.
So there I was, Craig. Clowns
Yes,
to the left
there
of
you
me, Jokers to the right, and I was thinking,
Were you
here
in the
I
middle
am,
again?
Stuck in the middle with you. Here it is, right here, right now.
I don't remember that.
Wait, is that laugh? Is that Ross? Ross, you're back in Dunkin'
That
Donuts.
is a distinctive laugh.
You couldn't even be gone for a week before indulging in more sugary goodness.
Hello, Craig. Hello, Russ. Fancy meeting you here.
Indeed.
Fancy meeting you here.
Well, we're here
One in a
every week,
million
pretty much.
chance.
It's pretty sad, really. We have donuts far too often. So what's your flavor of the day, Ross? What are you enjoying right now?
I am enjoying a chocolate-covered eclair.
Oh, excellent choice. Craig, what are you having?
I'm having a chocolate frosted, just a classic. One of my favorites.
They never go out of style, really. Sometimes you just got to
That is a classic.
Enjoy the classics. You guys seen any movies this weekend?
I can tell you about a movie I saw recently.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't. I'm not seeing any movies this weekend, but I have seen a movie twice very recently.
Me too. I saw Black Panther twice.
You
I
did?
saw Black Panther twice too.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome. I saw it once, but I want to see it again. It just haven't got around to it. So
Okay.
that's cool. Let's pull up some coffees and some chairs here. And what did you guys think of the movie? What'd you think?
Well, I would like to cede first comment to Ross.
Ooh, okay. This is going to be very profound. So I'm going to take a deep. I'm going to lean back in my chair, have a deep sip of far too much cream in my coffee, and listen to Ross Watson wax poetic on his thoughts.
Well, the short version is I loved it. I thought it was one of the best films I've seen, one of the best Marvel movies, certainly. I really enjoyed every minute it was on screen, and I thought it was visionary in many ways, and probably, I think, obviously, my perspective is different than maybe the certain cultures that it was aimed at, but it is certainly a very powerful film. Especially for Black Americans and people of color throughout the world.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. What did you think, Craig? What was your initial reaction to the movie?
My
what were
initial
your expectations? Were your expectations like super high?
I went in assuming that it was going to be a decent Marvel movie, and that the hype was being driven by something other than your average run-of-the-mill movie hype. That's what I went in assuming. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to have these super high expectations that it's going to be the greatest and it's going to beat everything. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. And I'm just going to, take it for what it's worth, one thing at a time. And I loved it. I was riveted. I loved every character. I loved the plot. I loved the world building. I thought was phenomenal. Agreed. I thought Wakanda was it's really the first time that Marvel has put on the big screen, a full and complete new culture, right? I mean, you've got little bits and pieces and glimpses of other cultures here or there. You could argue Asgard, but Asgard the culture itself doesn't really feature prominently. I would say Wakanda is almost another character in the movie.
Oh, sure. It's the first time we've seen a concept called Afrofuturism in that kind of film, especially in a Marvel film and a Disney-backed film. That cultural aesthetic of the developing intersection of African and African-American culture with technology. It's got, the mix of fantasy and history and the science fiction all together. It was badass. It was just great.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I noticed that I went with Reese the first time I went and saw it, and I noticed that he kind of checked out in the middle. And
I may have napped briefly in the middle.
But for the first time I saw it, I did not. I loved everything about it. I loved watching the characters. I enjoyed learning more about them. It didn't matter what the scenario was or what the situation was. I just loved watching them in whatever situation they were in. The second time I watched it, Russ, I may have napped a little bit. And that's where I think when the nostalgia wears off a little bit on this movie, there are some flaws that may or may not be, popular to talk about. I don't know. But I would say that the pacing in the middle of the movie kind of falls apart for me a little bit. And it's glued together very nicely by all the cultural stuff and the character work and acting and everything is still there, but it sort of slows down and it becomes more of an expositional background piece. And you've got like you're moving the pieces around, which is totally acceptable and necessary to get the plot, keep the plot moving. And the first time I saw it, I was very forgiving of it. And the second time I found myself I didn't sleep or nap or anything like that. It never went to that level for me. But it was as if I was kind of like, okay, let's move on. Let's go to the next major plot point and stop setting things up. So I would say I didn't enjoy it as much the second time, which I was disappointed at. I did still enjoy it. It still is one of my favorite recent Marvel movies by far. But it was not like quite the fun super nonstop ride it was like the second viewing was for a lot of the other movies, if that makes sense.
I think you can make some valid criticisms. It's certainly, I mean, the idea of a perfect film, right, doesn't really exist. Right. Like for me, some of the CG in the final battle was, there was a little bit too much of that for me. But I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about are pretty minor nitpicks for what is overall like a really, really great film.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I mean, they definitely, without a doubt, have some of my favorite Marvel characters now.
Oh my God, can we talk about the characters?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think we need. I think the culture taken as a character means the characters drove this whole movie. That's what I think.
Yes.
Well, let's talk first about like one of the things that makes this movie just so freaking amazing. The villain, Killmonger.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is, like, I realized that something really special was going on after I saw it the first time, and I thought back to that opening monologue where they talk about what Wakanda is and the story of Wakanda's founding. And I realized then, after I'd seen the movie the first time, that opening narration is from Killmonger's father to him.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, like it suddenly hit me like how strongly they'd woven in Killmonger's identity and his journey into the film. And what strikes me as just amazing from a filmmaking point of view, Hollywood's a very paint by numbers type of place. It's like the easy answer is almost always the right answer. And how easy would it have been to just make Claw the villain of the film, and it's all about getting the vibranium out of the country? Mm-hmm. Or how easy would it have been to make M'Baku the villain, and it's all about who's king of Wakanda? And Ryan Coogler, the director, he's like, no, we're going to do something really deep and really nuanced, and our villain is going to be a guy, that you can sympathize with, and he's got, his experience is the experience of Black America. And I thought that was, to me, mind-bogglingly good.
Yeah, I think that his positioning as a bad guy who had an understandable motivate, it was a much deeper bad guy than I think you generally get in comic book movies. I think there was no doubt he was the bad guy. He had made bad choices in his life.
And his goals were evil, yeah.
Right, but at the same time, the motivation behind them was human. It was understandable. It was even, if you squint a little bit, laudable, you from a distance. And I thought that was phenomenal. And I thought that allowed for that final scene in the movie, which you can't get if you're fighting. A Magneto actually is a very similar figure to me as well, where there's a very understandable driving motivation there that's then been twisted for a variety of reasons. But, when with a little distance, you can go, okay, I can see all of your best villains in any movie or any story, novel or whatever is coming from a very human place. And I think Killmonger.
Well, okay, Craig, that's a very broad statement, and I would push back a little bit on that because there's villains. There's villains like the Terminator and the Joker and Xenomorphs and aliens that are absolutely not at all sympathetic
but Craig is
relatable.
But Craig has mentioned before, and I think this is fair, that the best villains are the heroes of their own story, right?
Yes.
So the best.
I think.
Well,
see, I would best, if first of all, I don't think you can put in the Terminator in there. The Terminator is a force. The Terminator, in my mind, is not a villain.
Well, okay, so certainly he is a force of nature, but that's a type of villain if you look at the idea of a villain as an opposing force for the hero.
Right.
And certainly the Joker is a villain. I mean, I don't think anybody here would argue that.
No, but I would argue that
nothing
he's not a very
redeeming about
strong villain. Is what I would. I mean, he's fun, he's exciting, he's very popular, but I don't find him compelling in the slightest. I don't find, much like I don't find most of the bad guys, quote unquote, in 40K very compelling, because they're bad because they're bad. You know, you got to get into the Chaos Space Marines and the fiction that's been written since then that creates these individual characters that have these driving forces behind them. If you don't have at least some aspect of this character that is identifiable, then I think it is a weaker two-dimensional villain that weakens your overall narrative. It's just my point of view.
Well, we could have probably a whole show on what makes good villains. If we were recording a show and not speaking.
If we were and not just hanging out.
Exactly.
Right.
But looking like Darth Vader, right? He has a redemption story, and a lot of great villains don't really realize. I mean, yes, there are also great villains that are true enemies, and I think, Ross, where you're going is one of my daughter's critiques is of a lot of movies. We talk about this with Disney movies all the time. So and this is a Disney movie, but it's not really sort of the same ilk. But basically, the best Disney movies have a clear villain that is the foil for the hero, right? Sometimes, like in one of the more recent Disney movies, Moana, one of my girls' biggest criticisms of Moana is there actually is no bad guy in Moana. Right. They end up fighting a volcano, which turns out to be the Earth, and it's a good guy. So, there's no real evil villain, and I think that happens a lot in some of these films where the hero's journey goes up against nothing. And I think what's interesting about this is it's in my opinion one of the best kinds of villains where you can relate to the villain. And when the villain is relatable, even though it's a different culture for me, it's still a relatable journey. It's still the journey of, you know, the forgotten or dismissed son who tries to come home and then instead of trying to earn back the respect of his father, strikes out against his father, which is sort of a classic archetype. But it was still a cool way to do it and a really interesting approach to it.
And we get like two other villains. We get Claw, you know, though he's done away with in the first act, but Andy Serkis does a great job as him. And
he was phenomenal as a crazy madman bad guy.
And my other favorite guy is M'Baku, who just every time that dude's on screen, I'm just sitting there going, "Oh my God, you're awesome."
We will feed you to our children. Just kidding, we're vegetarians.
Are you finished? Are you finished? You know, he's got the great lines and just, you know,
use an army. Of course you could. No.
He's he's got a great physical presence and a great charisma, and I him and Shuri they left right off the screen in terms of vibrancy as characters. So I thought
I do want to go a little bit more to Killmonger, because my point being that because he is so identifiable and his motives are so understandable, it allows for a denouement for that character and for Black Panther that I don't think most of these other villains that are more two-dimensional would allow, which is at the end T'Challa realizes that there was a validity to it and changes his own worldview. So almost folds Killmonger's own worldview into his own to a more healthy variant of it, and then we get this sort of synthesized worldview that I think really reflects the depth of that character and gave his. I mean, he really died on his own terms, right? I mean, that was pretty crazy and extreme. One of the most powerful moments for me was when he opted for death.
And the way he did it,
and absolutely. The way he did it, exactly.
But you're right about T'Challa. His story, his evolution in the film is about that outlook, about the idea of, well, what can Wakanda do for the rest of the world, specifically for other, you know, struggling Africans, everywhere. And I love the fact that he evolves because of his exposure to Killmonger and what Killmonger wanted. Obviously, he doesn't go the route that Killmonger wanted to go, but you're right. He just changed in reaction to that, and that's a really well written character for our protagonist.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, even more than T'Challa, what's great about this film is he's surrounded by so many awesome, strong Black women characters. Yeah. You know, from Shuri to Okoye to the spy who was also his girlfriend and his mother, played by Angela Bassett. Just so many awesome, great characters. I was very thrilled to see that representation done very well.
Yeah, and I don't think any of it was forced
or
felt forced. I thought every character, it was all of a piece. I thought it was extremely well written, extremely well directed. All of the roles were extremely well acted to make it all. And again, that's because we're introducing a whole new culture, right? So anything that as long as you justify it and it stays internally consistent, the audience is probably going to be willing to go with you on that journey. But I think what they did was really kind of take that opportunity and run with it to really carve themselves out an incredibly powerful niche inside not just the Marvel universe, but cinema in general, which I think is probably going to resonate off into the future. I don't know how much it's going to resonate. I don't know how much of a sea change it's going to indicate. I don't think it's going to be as much as some people are hoping. I don't think it's going to be as fast as some people are hoping, but I think it has opened global audiences to potentials that the right directors and the right writers are going to be able to capitalize on for certain.
Yeah, culturally, this has been a big movement. I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there of people reacting, and actually some really heartwarming ones of people speaking to the main character, his I can't say his name, unfortunately, but T'Challa's actor. They tell him, what the movie meant to them, and it's very effective to me. And like I was saying to a lot of people, Black Panther may not be the most powerful superhero, but his movie may be the most powerful one of them all.
Well, I like it because I think what's great about this, and one of the reasons I've always loved sci-fi, particularly classic sci-fi, is that the medium's always been used to sort of have us as a lens to look back at society, right?
You talk about this when you talk about Orville all the time.
Right. And I think what was really fantastic about this movie is now they've hinted at it with some of the Marvel movies a little bit, but this is the first one where they really got in and said, you know what, we're going to use this wildly fantastical world that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're going to use it to hold up a lens and let people see what's going on here and make these characters real. I mean, they tapped into it a little bit, but this was really like they went all in, and I think it's great. But they did it in a way that it still all fits. It wasn't really jarringly outside of the Marvel universe. And if you ignored all the really cool sort of deeper meanings and deeper statements in this movie and just watched it for seeing Black Panther kick ass, it still fits right into the story.
Oh, right? Yeah, it fits right into the Marvel levels, universe.
Right, very well. Yeah.
It was a very funny movie, too. I laughed out loud. The real question is, what are those? It's just all these great jokes. I call them sneakers, right? It was very, very funny, which later on I found out they tapped Donald Glover from Community to help write some more of some of the humor into the movie, and I think it really paid off because I was definitely grinning or laughing through many of the parts that were intended to make me grin or laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you guys think about? So clearly, it was a very profound film, and a lot of really interesting stuff happened there. What do you think about it as though a connection between what's come so far in the Marvel universe and what we're heading into with the Infinity War?
Well, I think, this has been bandied around the internet, so I'm certainly not the first person to think about it. But I think that the source of the heart-shaped herb and all the vibranium and all that, I think there's may be some connection to the Infinity Stones with the thing that's in Wakanda that makes it special.
But are we missing any Infinity Stones? I think we have them. We know where they all are now, right?
I believe we're missing the Soul Stone.
Oh, are we? Okay. So that would
and the Soul Stone would kind of explain the whole visions of the afterlife with their dead kings and all. Listen, it's just a theory. Like, I don't know, but
no, I mean, I think it's clear from the previews, right, of Infinity Wars that they're going to leverage Wakanda. I think they knew what they had on their hands even before the movie was viewed. Or maybe they just took a chance and it's going to really pay off for them. But I think Wakanda is a major player in the Infinity Wars, and I think that's going to be an awesome kind of synergy for those of us who are like, yeah, we loved Wakanda. We want more. Oh my God, look at that. 4 months later, we got more Wakanda.
Yeah, I feel like there's an outside chance Wakanda could blow up.
Dude, for me, Wakanda forever. But I'm going to say, you know, what I think is we just talked about those glimpses into the spirit world, and again, storytelling wise, those are amazing.
Those are awesome.
What they do in terms of, you know, dialogue and character and acting is all great, but there's also a lot of really subtle visual cues and things that they do there that are really awesome from a storytelling point of view. Like the first time we go in there, you know, we see the old line of kings as these mythical creatures. They're the panther, you know. Yeah. And the second when Killmonger goes, you know, into the spirit world, he actually is not he's in America. He is the outsider, right?
Well, not only that, he's actually isolated from that spirit world because it's outside of that apartment that he's locked in.
Right. Yeah. And which is, you know, very symbolic and great. Yeah. And then the third time when T'Challa goes back, it's not as mythical. He's like the scales have fallen from his eyes and he sees his father, you know, a little more realistically. Mm-hmm. And again, it's done very subtly, but very, very well, in that it goes along with what's happening in the story and what the characters have learned about themselves and about the people that came before them.
I thought it was awesome, although I'm not going to lie, the very first time T'Challa goes in and you're seeing the African savanna and the tree and the panthers, in my head I just was expecting James Earl Jones to come out and say, "Simba, remember who you are." I just saw it coming. It didn't quite happen that way, which is good, but I was dangerously close.
No, it could have.
But I did. I really. There was, despite my only niggle with the movie is really the middle, where I thought the pacing was slower. But other than that, I love a lot of what happened here. I mean, I really like what they set up. I really love the story, the villain. I love the characters. I actually really enjoyed too the moral dilemma they put sort of the loyalist characters in. So they were kind of in what I like to call the Paladin's dilemma, right?
Yes.
Where they're lawful good, so they're following the letter of the law, even though they know on some level they're violating the spirit of their kingdom.
Yeah. And this is great because it leads up to that reveal with Okoye and her love, where he's like, "Would you kill me, my love? You know, for Wakanda? Without question."
Right.
Yes.
So that whole setup was fantastic. Right?
Yeah.
I had trouble, but even the one character, and I forget his name, but the guy who betrays T'Challa, right? The Rhino dude, the Rhino training guy.
The border tribe.
He had I loved that the I forget the name of the tribe that had the ape symbol, but those guys were amazing. I loved their journey where you just assumed from the beginning they were going to be bad guys, and then you realize, oh, they're actually, you know, you're sort of isolationists and they're on their own, but they still have the spirit of the kingdom at their heart, and they would never betray the concept of the Black Panther, and they would never betray the ritual, you know. But because I thought they were going to go Game of Thrones on us a little bit, you know, like
Wakabi,
right?
Wakabi is the guy.
But the guy who betrayed it, like I get that he's trying to be, you know, do that, but I don't understand. It wasn't relatable to me because he'd always lived in Wakanda, so he's about to like destroy everything Wakanda is, and I couldn't really understand how he got there.
Well, from the very beginning of the movie, he's arguing for them to go on the offensive against the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Right, and
in defense of people of African descent around the world.
Right, so and he also hates Claw and feels that the old king did nothing.
Father. Right.
And he feels like the old king did nothing to bring Claw to justice. Right. So when
T'Challa had a chance, he didn't do it either. Right. So he feels that betrayed. T'Challa failed him.
Yeah, that's true.
And then here comes this guy dragging the dead body. Yeah. Yes, right. I bought it mainly because from the very beginning he was arguing for going on the offensive and attack. Basically, what Killmonger was asking for.
Well, yeah, I think maybe he didn't phrase it. Maybe he phrased it a little less strongly, but yeah, very similar. Yeah, he was definitely.
Well, he said, "Say the word, and I will lead your forces out into the world." That was, I mean, implied
right.
there
okay.
was.
You're right.
You're right. He didn't revel in the violence and the death, but implied was there's an imbalance, and you say the word, and we're going to go out there and fix it. You know,
I think we're both right. So yeah,
we could both be right. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Violent agreement.
Right.
And I think Wakabi started having second thoughts as soon as Killmonger killed Zuri during the challenge.
Right.
Forrest Whitaker's character. He, once I don't know. It feels like to me that's when he was like, oh, maybe, okay. I wasn't really counting on that.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he did kill his father. So, I mean, they did a great job of balancing all of the different forces and pressures so that every time you're like, yep, that was a moment, then you're also like, oh, yeah, but at the same time, so I thought it was masterfully written.
Yeah, it really was. The story was
and it built off of, another really great film that was, again, masterfully written with, a very, nuanced conflict, which was, of course, Civil War. Right. And that's where we saw first Black Panther for the first time, built right on top of that and started almost right after that movie ended.
I loved that's why I love the dovetailing, right? So I loved how, we saw his father die in Civil War, and so now it dovetails right into it. So everything we saw in this movie cascades from the events of Civil War, right? I mean, that's a trigger. And I feel like what they've done now is they've lit the fuse on the triggers that we're going to see in Infinity Wars, right? So it's almost like the other movies all set it up too a bit, but I feel like now this is really going to. And I think the reason I think the Wakanda, and I like how you guys describe Wakanda as a character. The Wakanda character is brilliantly built, because it's such a centerpiece of this whole movie, of everything going on. The entire plot revolves around it. In many ways, it is the main character of the film. And I think, and I love your theory, Ross, or the internet theory, that there is one of the Infinity Stones is somehow under or powering or involved there in Wakanda. That really, if that is true, that certainly means that the Infinity War and the attack will be centered on Wakanda, which probably means if it's not outright destroyed, Wakanda will be messed up. And the thing about that is going to be really emotionally wrenching, because we've all fallen in love with this film. So it's
that's a good point.
It's going to be a great setup for us just getting, they've already been teasing in Infinity War that a major character is going to die. Now, I don't think Wakanda counts as a major character. I think they'd be kind of BS would be called if they didn't actually kill somebody. But in addition to that, I think you're going to have the thing where Wakanda is going to be really hurt, if not really badly, mortally wounded. And I think we're going to just be traumatized as viewers because we've all just completely fallen in love with it in this movie.
That's a good point. And, I just thought of something, when you were talking about this, is that, the idea of them getting involved and Wakanda using its resources to help the rest of the world. I think they cleverly did this thing in the movie where the very first scene with Black Panther, where he's rescuing the spy from the Nigerian warlords, basically. Right. I mean, it very clearly shows that they can easily do this.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't tell us that they can. It shows us that they can. And I love it when a movie does that, to where I have to think back and say, oh, that happened and I noticed it, but I didn't connect the dots until just now, because I hate it when a movie spoon feeds me that kind of stuff.
Right.
Black Panther did not do that at all. It seamlessly wove it in to where I'm only even now sort of, in the analysis going, aha,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm nervous for Wakanda in Infinity Wars. I hope I'm wrong. I'm nervous. I don't know if they'll kill it, but I think they'll mortally wound it. It'll be like that story, where the hero always gets beat up in the middle. This could be the Wakanda getting beat up in the middle part.
So I've got a prediction.
Yeah, sure.
I've got a prediction. What I think would be interesting is Robert Downey Jr., he's only got he's probably not going to play Iron Man forever, right?
No.
Right.
He's going to need to step down at some point. And who would they get to play Iron Man? And what I think would be really interesting is if Shuri was the next Iron Man.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would
be interesting.
Very cool. Just saying.
But do they already have all their cool technology. Do they need that?
Well, I mean,
no, but she could definitely take that suit and make it even cooler.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Iron Man's kind of more, this is drifting into Batman territory, but he's kind of a symbol now, right?
Yeah, but I don't see Shuri. Here's the thing. So analyzing her, I loved. She's one of my favorite characters in the whole movie. So she is a techno nerd, right? She can build anything, invent anything. She's got all this great stuff. I don't see her adopting someone else's technology. I see her building her own stuff.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean?
Like, I don't see her. Why would she adopt the Stark thing when she's literally the person building the Black Panther suits? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just feel like that would be kind of
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know.
A step back.
Could happen. Well, not a step. It's just she'd be like shifting cultures. I don't know. There'd be all kinds of like meta level stuff happening on that if they did that. It would be.
You could also get people calling BS because she could easily be a superhero in her own right.
That's
instead
what I mean.
of taking
She could build
the
her own
mantle.
stuff.
Adopting
her own
someone
thing.
else's
Yeah,
identity. Yeah. Okay, you make a good point there. I guess I was
Right.
just.
You had me, Ross, and then Russ had me. Sorry.
I think you'll get.
I bend with the wind here.
I think you'll
It's a
get
good win. It's a good
well,
win.
I think there's plenty of other. The other thing too, they do a really good job with is staying pretty close to true to a lot of the different, at least nods to the different story arcs in the comics. And there's a pantheon of various Iron Man people, so they could easily. I think it's more likely they go down one of those paths, just to sort of nod to that. Than although I would not be surprised if the next Iron Man was an Iron Woman. I could see that happening.
Shuri is a Disney princess now, technically.
She is.
so.
Yes, I've heard that the statement. As is Organa, Leah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes. So that's fantastic. So what else? What did you guys think? Did you guys stay for the stinger? You got to stay through the credits.
Of course.
As Boromir says, one does not simply walk out of a Marvel credit. So what did you guys think of the little teaser at the end there?
I thought it was neat, but I didn't stay the second time.
Well, we of course. What did you think, Ross? Did you stay both times?
I did stay both times. I think, I like Sebastian Stan as an actor. I think he's really great. So seeing, his short but, moment there, I think it was cool and it was cute. It wasn't as big a deal as a lot of the stingers we've seen. It was kind of like it
was no,
and
right?
also this thing, right?
But it was also
But at the same time,
right?
it totally ties together.
Yes.
Shuri's line, "Oh, another broken white boy."
Yes, exactly. That was awesome. That was awesome.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig that it was, it was connected to the whole, but it just, compared to some other stingers, it wasn't like momentous or
Well,
anything.
it wasn't
was just
because
like, okay.
we knew they dropped him off there.
That's why I didn't stay.
So
the
it
second
wasn't
time.
really a big. It wasn't like, oh, it wasn't a reveal.
I stayed for shawarma every time.
Oh, you got to stay for shawarma. But
Stay
it
for
wasn't as
shawarma.
cool as like in the first Iron Man when like there's freaking Nick Fury. That was like, oh my god, Nick Fury. So they could have done, but I still liked it. It was just it was almost like a reminder.
Yeah.
It served two purposes, I think. One, it's just it ties back, and to your point, Craig, it does catch a couple of Easter eggs in case you missed them, for the fans. But the second thing it reminds you the Avengers are coming. Like it almost reminds you like
You're right.
this was all about Wakanda and the people of Wakanda. But guess what? The outsiders are already here, and these guys are pretty badass too. And everything you think you just solved is about to get broken. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the message I got there.
I kind of want to see a spin-off movie now starring, Shuri and Okoye and M'Baku and just,
I think they have to. I think they could have all kinds of fun with this. I think there's all kinds of opportunity, and especially since the movies did so well and grossed so well, I think they
made a lot of money.
I can easily see them at least experimenting, and I'm sure they won't get all the same, writers and other people involved, so that some of them may unfortunately not be as good. But it'll be fun to see them do this.
Well, it's funny you should say that, though, because in my experience, once you've got an awesome writer who's established a character and an actor who's really sunk his teeth or her teeth into it, a slightly lesser writer will be first motivated to will be elevated by the material, but also any sort of discrepancy in the quality can be mitigated somewhat by the fact that we've already got the characters and the actor already has the experience of being the character. So you might not be able to get this kind of perfect storm going again for a sequel or a spinoff, but I think it will be a very forgivable or a very forgiving scenario because of the strength of that it's building on.
So I am my nervousness is around the data that I can't think of too many movies that had spin-off secondary characters that did well.
Right. But we don't even know if there is going to be one.
No. I'm just saying that
we do know as of today that there's going to be a sequel.
Yes, of course there would.
So that's good. I mean, we knew that there would be.
And they do that anyway,
today
right?
was
They've had all the
official.
sequels of Thor and Iron Man and Cap. So
and the Hulk.
Technically, the entire MCU is a spin-off of Iron Man.
That's true.
That's fair. Fair. Yes. Although, well, yes, it is. But I think they had planned some of that pretty early. That's what's amazing about this is how much of it was. I don't know how detailed, the level of detail in the plot arcs, but they seriously, some stuff was thought pretty far out, which is impressive.
Oh yeah, I
Cool.
think so.
So any other thoughts on Black Panther? I think we pretty much got through most of it here. I'm excited for the next stuff, and it really amped me up even more for the next.
Yeah, agreed.
What's coming next?
Yeah,
Both the next Black Panther film, because I will be there on day one, but also
Me too.
but also Infinity War, because now I'm even more excited. And the other thing I think that's amazing about the MCU is the ability to have a movie like this, which is, again, super serious, and the characters all work, and it's really interesting and meaningful, and also fun. And then in the same exact universe, not like two doors down, you got a raccoon and a talking tree.
Yes.
You know, and they're all going to be in the same movie in about 2 months, which is just even better.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
They've talked about this a lot on in film critics, the stuff that I like to follow on the internet. That
Right.
Marvel's had home run after home run after home run, especially with their movies, and especially when they take risks. Things like Guardians of the Galaxy. You could say Black Panther was a risk.
Oh,
and,
definitely. Yeah.
And they do really, really well when they stretch themselves and take risks and bring new things that audiences really haven't seen before in the milieu of superheroes, if you will. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next in the future for them, because they just have a track record of nailing it almost every single time.
Yeah,
so
they do make this work.
Yeah,
That's exciting. All righty, boys, we're getting the evil eye here, so I guess I'll have to
yep.
But Ross, thank you for joining us for an extended session here at Duncan.
It was my pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting me, over to talk about this movie.
Yeah. So we'll have a great rest of the week here, and I am going to go see a movie this weekend. I'm excited for the new Tomb Raider film. I'm a big Tomb Raider fan, so new Tomb Raider movie.
When did that come out?
This week.
Ross and I were talking before you came in to Dunks.
Yeah, this
it came out. It already came out,
No, it's
or it's
coming out. It'll be out this Saturday.
Okay.
or Friday.
All right.
I got to see an advanced screening of that last
Oh,
week.
that's right. He did.
What'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. Okay, so just to be clear, I have not played the new game at all.
No spoilers.
So I hear that it's very similar to the new game, but I don't know that. But I thought it was really fun and really good. And it has, for me, well, you tell me if when you see it, I want to hear your thoughts. But it had kind of a strong Indiana Jones vibe that I was really digging.
Well, all the Tomb Raider games, from the original one to the 92 have all been sort of female Indiana Jones. It's been their shtick. But what's cool about the game reboot, and I played both of the new games, is they took it from sex symbol to realistic kick-ass female, and it looks like, I haven't seen the movie yet, but the trailers look like they really nailed that feeling. So I'm super excited for the movie, because I love where the games went. The last two Tomb Raider games have been fantastic, so this is super exciting. So anyway, now they're going to kick us out. So
all right.
Thanks again, Ross. We'll see you again soon.
See you guys later.
Bye, Ross. Thanks again.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.